I watched in horror as HOA President Karen stormed into my home, grabbed my 3-week-old baby Emma, and threw her onto the burning concrete driveway in 105-degree heat. She screamed that I was an unfit mother who violated community rules. What she didn't know. I was an FBI agent. Her biggest mistake. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The temperature gauge in my car read 105 degrees Fahrenheit when I pulled into the driveway of our new townhouse in Sunset Ridge HOA. My 3-week-old daughter, Emma, was sleeping peacefully in her car seat, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath. I had just finished my maternity leave paperwork at the FBI field office, eager to spend the next few months focused solely on being a mother. I didn't know that in less than an hour, my world would shatter. My name is Sarah Mitchell. For 8 years, I'd worked as a special agent with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. I'd taken down drug cartels, corrupt politicians, and white-collar criminals. But nothing in my training prepared me for what Karen Whitmore would do that afternoon. I carried Emma inside, placed her gently in her bassinet, and started unpacking the boxes we hadn't gotten to yet. My husband, David, was deployed overseas with the Army. It was just me and Emma for the next 6 months. I'd chosen this quiet suburban community specifically because it seemed safe, peaceful, and perfect for raising a child. I was so wrong. Around 2 p.m., I heard aggressive knocking on my front door. Not a polite knock, the kind of pounding that suggested emergency or anger. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman in her mid-50s with blonde hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her face. She wore a white polo shirt with HOA President embroidered on it and held a clipboard like a weapon. I opened the door with Emma in my arms. "Can I help you?" "I'm Karen Whitmore, HOA President," she announced, her voice sharp and entitled. "You're in violation of Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the HOA bylaws. Your mailbox is the wrong shade of black." I blinked at her, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your mailbox." She pointed at the standard black mailbox at the end of my driveway. "It's supposed to be midnight black, shade number 2847. Yours is clearly black satin, shade 2849. You have 24 hours to replace it or face a $500 fine." Emma stirred in my arms, making small whimpering sounds. I adjusted her, trying to stay calm. "Ma'am, I just moved in 3 days ago. The mailbox was already here. I'll look into it, but right now, I'm alone with a newborn, and this really isn't a priority." Karen's eyes narrowed. "HOA rules are not optional, Mrs. Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell. Mrs. Mitchell, I don't care if you just moved in or if you have 10 newborns. Rules are rules. 24 hours. She turned to leave, then stopped. "And that wreath on your door is also a violation. Only seasonal wreaths are permitted, and we're between seasons. Remove it by tonight." The wreath had been a gift from my mother, a simple welcome home decoration with Emma's name on it. My hands trembled as I held my daughter closer. "I'll take care of it." But Karen wasn't done. She stepped closer, peering past me into my home. "Are you running a business from this residence? I see multiple packages by your door. Those are baby supplies. Diapers, formula, things my family sent. Section 12 prohibits home businesses and excessive deliveries. I'll be watching you, Mrs. Mitchell." She walked away, leaving me standing there, shaking with a mixture of disbelief and rage. I closed the door and tried to calm down. Emma was fully awake now, crying. I fed her, changed her, and tried to forget about Karen Whitmore. But Karen wasn't done with me. Not even close. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 7 violation notices. My grass was half an inch too tall. My car was parked 3 inches over the designated line. My trash cans were visible from the street for 10 minutes past the allowed time. Each violation came with a fine ranging from $200 to $500. I tried to comply. I really did. But with a newborn, sleep deprivation, and my husband deployed in a combat zone, keeping up with Karen's impossible standards was breaking me. I called her, left messages asking if we could talk reasonably. She never returned my calls. Instead, the violations increased. Other neighbors started approaching me with sympathy. A woman named Patricia, who lived 2 doors down, told me that Karen had driven out 4 families in the past 2 years. "She's a monster," Patricia whispered. "She forced one family into bankruptcy with fines. Another family's elderly father had a heart attack from the stress. But she has the HOA board in her pocket, her brother and 2 cousins. Nobody can stop her." "Someone needs to," I said quietly. Patricia touched my arm. "Honey, people have tried. Karen has connections at City Hall, at the county courthouse. She's untouchable. My advice? Move before she destroys you." But I couldn't move. David and I had used our entire savings for the down payment. With him deployed and me on unpaid maternity leave, we were already stretched thin financially. The fines were adding up. I now owed the HOA $3,400, and Karen had placed a lien on my property. I tried to document everything, thinking like the FBI agent I was. I kept records, took photos, saved every email and notice. I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it all, but instinct told me I'd need evidence. Then came the day that changed everything. It was July 15th. The temperature hit 105 degrees Fahrenheit by noon, with a heat advisory warning people to stay indoors. Emma had been fussy all morning. The heat was affecting her despite the air conditioning. I'd finally gotten her to sleep for her afternoon nap when my phone rang. It was my mother, calling about my father's health. He'd had a minor stroke the week before, and I'd been torn between wanting to visit him and being unable to travel with Emma so young. I stepped out onto my front porch to take the call, leaving the door slightly ajar so I could hear Emma through the baby monitor clipped to my waist. The conversation lasted maybe 8 minutes. I stood in the shade of my small porch, watching the heat waves rise from the pavement, talking to my mother about my father's recovery and promising I'd visit as soon as possible. When I turned to go back inside, I saw Karen marching up my driveway. "Mrs. Mitchell," she shouted. "I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes." "I was on an important call," I said, keeping my voice level despite my irritation. "I don't care if you were talking to the president. You have a violation to address immediately." She pointed at my front lawn. "Your sprinklers are running during prohibited hours. Section 19, paragraph 8 clearly states no water usage between noon and 6 p.m. to conserve community resources." I looked at my lawn. The sprinklers weren't even on. "Karen, those aren't my sprinklers. That's morning dew and overflow from my neighbor's system. Don't lie to me." Her face flushed red. "I know what I see. This is your final warning, Mrs. Mitchell. I'm calling an emergency HOA board meeting to discuss revoking your residency. You can't evict me from my own home. Watch me." She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of my lawn, of my house, of me. "I'm also documenting that you're creating a hostile environment. You're aggressive, uncooperative, and a detriment to this community." Something inside me snapped. 8 years of FBI training, of staying calm under pressure, of facing down criminals and keeping my composure, all of it crumbled in the face of this petty tyrant's abuse. "Get off my property," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" I said get off my property. Now. Or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing and harassment. Karen's eyes went wide, then narrowed with pure malice. "How dare you threaten me? I am the HOA president. I have every right to be here." "No, you don't. The HOA bylaws, which I've now read completely, state that property inspections require 24 hours written notice unless there's an emergency. You've given me no notice, and there's no emergency. Leave. Now. For a moment, I thought she might leave. She turned, took 3 steps, then spun back around. What she did next happened so fast that I barely had time to process it. Karen walked straight past me, pushed my front door fully open, and went into my house. What are you doing? I rushed after her. You can't just enter my home. I'm conducting an emergency inspection, she shouted back. I heard Emma crying. My baby had been sleeping peacefully, and now she was wailing because a stranger had burst into our home, shouting. I ran toward the nursery, but Karen got there first. Karen, get away from my daughter. She was standing over Emma's bassinet, her face twisted with disgust. This room is a health hazard. There are clothes on the floor. The temperature is too warm. This constitutes child neglect. Get out of my house. I screamed, my maternal instincts overriding everything else. I reached for Emma, but Karen moved faster than I expected. She picked up my baby, roughly, without supporting her head properly, and Emma's cries intensified. Put her down. I lunged forward, but Karen sidestepped me. I'm taking this child to Child Protective Services, Karen announced. You're clearly an unfit mother. Living in squalor, violating community standards, creating an unsafe environment. Give me my baby. I tried to grab Emma, but Karen turned away, clutching my daughter against her chest like a shield. What happened next still haunts me. Karen ran toward my front door, still holding Emma. I chased after her, screaming, begging, ordering her to give me back my child. She made it out the door, down the porch steps, and into the brutal afternoon heat. Help! Karen started screaming. Help! This woman is attacking me. Someone call 911. Neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion. I saw Patricia, saw old Mr. Chen from across the street, saw a teenage boy I didn't recognize. She has my baby. I screamed. Someone stop her. She took my baby. Karen was halfway down the driveway when I caught up to her. I grabbed her arm, trying to be careful not to hurt Emma in the struggle. Give her back. Get away from me, you psycho. Karen shoved me with her free hand, hard enough that I stumbled backward. And then she did the unthinkable. Karen set Emma down, my 3-week-old baby, on the burning concrete driveway. In 105-degree heat, and walked away. There's your baby. Karen shouted. Maybe you'll take better care of her now. Everything went red. I ran to Emma, scooped her up in my arms. Her skin was already hot from the seconds she'd been on that sun-scorched concrete. She was screaming, her little face purple with distress. I could feel the heat radiating from the driveway through my shoes. I knew that concrete had to be at least 150 degrees. I clutched Emma to my chest and turned to look at Karen, who was standing there with her arms crossed, looking satisfied. You just assaulted me and endangered my child, I said, my voice deadly calm despite the rage coursing through my veins. You broke into my home, kidnapped my baby, and left her in life-threatening heat. I did no such thing. Karen's voice was shrill. You're hysterical. Everyone saw you attack me. This is exactly why you're not fit for this community. Patricia ran over to me. Sarah, is Emma okay? Oh my God, I saw everything. You saw nothing. Karen cut her off. This woman is unstable. I want her arrested. The teenage boy had his phone out, and I realized with a sinking feeling that he'd been recording. Karen saw it too and smiled. Perfect, she said. That video will show everyone what really happened here. But I saw the boy's face. He looked horrified. And he was staring at Karen, not at me. Ma'am, the boy said quietly, I got everything. I saw you take the baby. I saw you put her on the hot ground. Karen's face went white, then read again. Delete that video. Right now. No, the boy said. He looked at me. I'm Tyler. I live 3 streets over. My mom told me about what Karen's been doing to you. I came over to watch because someone needed to document her abuse. I have everything. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called 911, I wasn't sure if it was Karen or one of the neighbors. I looked down at Emma. She was still crying, but her skin wasn't burned, thank God. A few more seconds, and she could have been seriously injured. The thought made my legs go weak. 2 police cars pulled up. 4 officers emerged, and Karen immediately ran to them. Officers. Thank God you're here. This woman attacked me. She's mentally unstable and a danger to her child. One of the officers, a woman in her 30s, walked over to me first. Ma'am, are you all right? Is the baby hurt? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think clearly. Officer, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a special agent with the FBI. That woman broke into my home, physically took my infant daughter from her bassinet, fled with her, and placed her on burning concrete in 105-degree heat. I have witnesses, and that young man has video evidence of the entire incident. The officer's expression changed. She radioed something to her partner, then turned to me. FBI. Do you have identification? I still had my credentials in my pocket from my morning at the office. I handed them over with my free hand, still cradling Emma with the other. The officer examined my badge and ID carefully, then nodded. Agent Mitchell. I'm Officer Rodriguez. Let's get you and your baby out of this heat first. Then we'll get statements from everyone. Karen was still talking rapidly to the other officers, but her voice had taken on a desperate edge. She's lying. I'm the HOA president. I have authority here. Officer Rodriguez called over to her partners. She says the blonde woman took the baby from inside the residence and put her on the hot concrete. That's exactly what happened, Patricia spoke up. I saw the whole thing. Karen went into Sarah's house without permission, took the baby, and then put her down on the driveway. In this heat, the baby could have died. Tyler stepped forward with his phone. I have video. All of it. Officer Rodriguez's partner, a tall man with gray hair, took Tyler's phone and watched the video. His jaw clenched. He looked over at Karen with an expression of pure disgust. Ma'am, he called out to Karen. I need you to place your hands behind your back. Karen's face went from red to white. What? No. I'm the victim here. You are under arrest for burglary, kidnapping, child endangerment, and assault. The officer began reading Karen her rights as he handcuffed her. This is insane. Karen screamed. Do you know who I am? I'm on the City Council Advisory Board. I know the mayor. You can't arrest me. Ma'am, you forcibly entered someone's home, took their infant child, and placed that child in life-threatening conditions. Your connections don't matter here. I watched them put Karen in the back of a police car, still screaming about lawsuits and consequences. Emma had finally stopped crying, exhausted from the ordeal. I held her close, feeling her heartbeat against mine, and let myself start to shake. Officer Rodriguez guided me to her patrol car, where the air conditioning was running. Agent Mitchell, I know you're probably in shock, but I need to ask you some questions. We also need to have EMTs check your daughter. Of course. My voice sounded far away to my own ears. An ambulance arrived, and paramedics examined Emma thoroughly. She was fine, scared and overheated, but fine. No burns, no injuries. They wanted to take her to the hospital for observation, but I refused. I couldn't let her out of my sight. We compromised on me taking her to her pediatrician within the hour. Over the next 2 hours, I gave my statement. Patricia gave hers. Tyler handed over his video. Mr. Chen and 3 other neighbors provided witness statements. The evidence was overwhelming. But as I sat there, answering questions and watching the police process the scene, a cold fury settled over me. This wasn't just about what Karen had done to me today. This was about the months of harassment, the financial abuse, the intimidation. This was about the other families she'd driven away, the elderly man who'd had a heart attack from her stress. Karen Whitmore had made one critical mistake. She'd gone after an FBI agent. And I was going to make sure she paid for everything. After the police left, I took Emma to her pediatrician, Dr. Patel, who'd been our family physician since Emma was born. She examined Emma thoroughly and assured me she was completely fine. But Sarah, Dr. Patel said gently, are you okay? You've been through a trauma. I realized I was still shaking. I keep thinking about what could have happened. If I'd been a few seconds slower, if the concrete had been hotter, if she'd hurt Emma in the struggle. But none of that happened. Your baby is safe. You're both safe now. I nodded, but I knew I wouldn't feel truly safe until Karen Whitmore could never hurt anyone again. That evening, after Emma was asleep, I sat down at my laptop. I called my supervisor at the FBI, SAC, special agent in charge, Marcus Chen. Sarah. I thought you were on maternity leave. I am. But something happened today, sir. I need to run something by you, off the record for now. I told him everything. The months of HOA harassment, the fines, the violations, and finally, what Karen had done to Emma. When I finished, there was a long silence. Sarah, I'm so sorry. Is Emma really okay? She's fine, physically. But Marcus, this woman has been running a systematic harassment campaign. And while I was documenting her behavior toward me, I started noticing patterns. Large cash deposits in the HOA accounts. Fines that don't match the bylaws. Construction contracts awarded to companies that don't exist. You think there's fraud? I think there's fraud, embezzlement, and possible connections to organized crime. Karen mentioned connections at City Hall and the courthouse. I want permission to investigate. Sarah, you're on leave. I know. That's why I'm asking permission. This is personal, but it's also a legitimate public corruption case. She's stolen thousands from homeowners, she's got her relatives on the board covering for her, and she's using her HOA position to extort residents. This is exactly what our unit handles. Another pause. Then, document everything. Send me what you have. If there's a case here, I'll assign it to you once your leave is over. But Sarah? Be careful. If she's as connected as you say, she's dangerous. Sir, she threw my baby on burning concrete. I know exactly how dangerous she is. Over the next 3 weeks, while waiting for Karen's trial date on the criminal charges, I worked. I compiled HOA financial records, which were supposed to be available to all residents. I interviewed neighbors, documenting years of abuse. I discovered that Karen had awarded a $400,000 community improvement contract to a construction company that existed only on paper, owned by her brother, the HOA vice president. I found residents who'd been fined tens of thousands of dollars for violations that weren't in the bylaws. I found an elderly couple who'd lost their home to foreclosure because Karen had placed liens on their property for invented violations, then had the property sold at auction, to her cousin, the HOA treasurer, for pennies on the dollar. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Karen Whitmore wasn't just a petty tyrant. She was running a criminal enterprise, using the HOA as a front for fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. I compiled everything into a comprehensive report and sent it to SAC Chen. 2 days later, he called me back. Sarah, this is bigger than we thought. I'm bringing in the financial crimes unit. We're opening a full investigation into the Sunset Ridge HOA and Karen Whitmore. But we need you back on active duty to lead it. Can you? My maternity leave ends in 3 weeks anyway. I can come back early if you need me. We need you. And Sarah? Good work. Really good work. Karen's criminal trial was scheduled for August 10th. The charges were serious: first-degree burglary, kidnapping, child endangerment, and assault. But her lawyer was expensive and good. He'd managed to get her released on bail, with a restraining order keeping her away from me and my property. I attended every court hearing, Emma in my arms. I wanted Karen to see us, to remember what she'd done. And I wanted her to know that I wasn't going anywhere. At the preliminary hearing, Karen's lawyer tried to paint me as an unstable, aggressive new mother who'd overreacted to routine HOA business. He presented the 7 violation notices as evidence that I was a problematic resident who refused to follow rules. My client was simply doing her job as HOA president, he argued. She had every right to address violations. And when she went to speak with Mrs. Mitchell, she was attacked. Everything my client did was in self-defense. Then the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Torres, played Tyler's video. The courtroom fell silent as everyone watched Karen enter my home without permission, take my baby from the bassinet, flee with her, and then, most damning, deliberately place Emma on the burning concrete driveway before walking away. When the video ended, Karen's lawyer had no response. The judge ordered her held over for trial. But I knew this was just the beginning. While the criminal case proceeded, I went back to work. The FBI investigation into Karen's HOA corruption was moving fast. We executed search warrants on HOA financial records, on Karen's personal accounts, on her brother's construction company. What we found was staggering. Over 8 years, Karen Whitmore and her family members had embezzled more than $2.3 million from the HOA. They'd created fake vendor accounts, submitted fraudulent invoices, and funneled money through shell companies. They'd used the fines and liens to force residents out, then had properties sold to family members at below-market rates. We found evidence of bribery, payments to a city building inspector, to a county clerk, to a judge who'd ruled in the HOA's favor in civil cases. The corruption went deeper than any of us had imagined. On September 2nd, we arrested Karen Whitmore again. This time, the charges included wire fraud, mail fraud, racketeering, money laundering, bribery, and conspiracy. Federal charges that carried decades in prison. We also arrested her brother, her 2 cousins, the building inspector, and the county clerk. The judge had already resigned and fled the state. We were working on extradition. Karen's expensive lawyer couldn't help her anymore. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, emails, witness testimony from dozens of residents. Her own handwriting on fraudulent documents. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I testified for 2 days, detailing both the personal harassment I'd experienced and the financial crimes I'd uncovered as an FBI agent. The jury heard from elderly couples who'd lost their homes. From families driven to bankruptcy. From residents who'd lived in fear of Karen's retaliation for years. Tyler's video was shown again. This time, in the context of everything else Karen had done, it was clear that her treatment of me wasn't an isolated incident, it was part of a pattern of abuse and intimidation she'd used to control the entire community. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts, both the state criminal charges and the federal corruption charges. At sentencing, the judge looked at Karen with undisguised contempt. Mrs. Whitmore, you used your position to terrorize and exploit vulnerable people. You stole their money, their homes, and their peace of mind. And when one person stood up to you, you retaliated by endangering her infant child's life. Your actions were calculated, cruel, and unforgivable. Karen received 25 years on the federal charges and 15 years on the state charges, to run consecutively. 40 years total. She would be 89 years old before she was eligible for parole. Her brother got 18 years. Her cousins got 10 years each. The civil lawsuits came next. Every resident Karen had harmed sued her, the HOA, and the board members. The settlements totaled over $8 million. Karen's assets were seized, her home, her cars, her bank accounts, and distributed to her victims. The Sunset Ridge HOA was dissolved and reformed under new leadership. The new board's first act was to eliminate most of Karen's ridiculous rules and to establish oversight procedures to prevent future abuse. On a crisp October morning, I sat on my front porch, Emma sleeping in my arms. She was 4 months old now, healthy and happy and perfect. My wreath, the one with her name on it, still hung on my door. My mailbox, whatever shade of black it was, remained unchanged. Patricia walked over with coffee. I still can't believe it's over. It's over, I agreed. She can't hurt anyone anymore. You know what people are saying? That you're a hero. That you saved this whole neighborhood. I looked down at Emma. I just wanted to protect my daughter. Everything else was just doing my job. Your job saved a lot of people, Sarah. People who couldn't fight back, people who'd given up. Patricia sipped her coffee. That old couple, the Hendersons. They got their house back. The settlement was enough for them to buy it back from Karen's cousin. I smiled. That was good news. They'd been some of Karen's earliest victims, and they'd suffered the most. What will you do now? Patricia asked. Take care of Emma. Go back to work in a couple of months. Maybe write a report on HOA fraud for the Bureau. Turns out this is more common than anyone realized. Karen wasn't an isolated case. Will you stay here? In this house? I thought about it. This house, this community, had been tainted by Karen's abuse. But it had also been the place where I'd stood up, fought back, and won. Where neighbors had supported each other and helped bring down a tyrant. Yeah, I said. I think we'll stay. This is home. David came home from deployment 3 weeks later. I picked him up at the airport with Emma, and he held us both for a long time, not saying anything. When I finally told him everything that had happened, he went pale. She did what? She put Emma on burning concrete. She's in prison now, David. For 40 years. She can never hurt us or anyone else again. He held Emma tighter. I wasn't here to protect you. You were serving our country. And I protected us. That's what we do, we protect each other and the people who can't protect themselves. That night, after Emma was asleep, David and I sat on our back patio, watching the stars. I keep thinking, David said quietly, about what could have happened. If you'd been anyone else, if you hadn't known how to investigate, if you hadn't had the FBI behind you, Karen would have gotten away with all of it. But I'm not anyone else. And she didn't get away with it. How many other HOAs are out there right now, run by people like Karen? People who abuse their power because no one can stop them? It was a question that haunted me too. More than we'd like to believe. But now we know what to look for. The FBI is setting up a task force to investigate HOA fraud nationwide. This case opened a lot of eyes. Good. David took my hand. I'm proud of you, Sarah. I know it wasn't easy, fighting back while taking care of Emma alone. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than any case I've worked. Because it was personal, because my baby was in danger. I paused, remembering that moment when Karen had set Emma on the burning concrete. The rage, the terror, the absolute determination that this woman would never hurt anyone again. She picked the wrong mother to mess with, David said with a slight smile. She picked the wrong family to mess with, I corrected. And the wrong community. Once people saw that it was possible to stand up to her, they all came forward. That's the real victory, not just stopping Karen, but empowering everyone else to speak up. A year later, I was back at work full-time, and Emma was thriving. The neighborhood was transformed. The oppressive atmosphere of fear had lifted. People actually talked to each other now, helped each other, looked out for one another. I received an award from the FBI director for the HOA corruption investigation, which had expanded to uncover similar schemes in 7 other states. Dozens of people had been arrested, hundreds of victims had received restitution, and new legislation was being drafted to increase oversight of HOAs and protect homeowners from abuse. But the real reward came on Emma's first birthday. We threw a party in our backyard, and the entire neighborhood came. These people who had once been too afraid to speak to each other, too isolated and intimidated, were now friends. They brought gifts, shared stories, and celebrated together. Patricia gave a toast to Sarah, who reminded us all that standing up to bullies isn't just possible, it's necessary. And to Emma, who deserves to grow up in a community built on kindness, not fear. Everyone raised their glasses. Emma, not understanding any of it, just laughed and smashed her face into her birthday cake. I looked around at the faces of my neighbors, people who had survived Karen's tyranny and come out stronger. People who now knew their own power. Thank you, I said simply. Thank you all for being brave enough to speak up, to share your stories, to help build the case against Karen. Without you, she might still be out there, hurting people. Mr. Chen, who was 92 now, spoke up in his quiet voice. Without you, we would never have had the courage to speak up. You showed us it was possible to fight back. That night, after the party, after Emma was asleep, I sat in her nursery and watched her breathe. I thought about that terrible day in July, when Karen had thrown her onto burning concrete. I thought about all the ways things could have gone wrong. But I also thought about all the ways things had gone right. How justice had been served. How a community had healed. How laws had changed to protect others from similar abuse. Karen Whitmore had tried to break me. Instead, she just revealed exactly how strong I could be. And in trying to hurt my daughter, she'd ensured that I would spend my career making sure no other family ever had to endure what we did. Sometimes the worst moments in life lead to the most important ones. That day in the scorching heat had been the worst day of my life as a mother. But it had also been the beginning of something bigger than myself, a movement to hold HOA tyrants accountable, to protect vulnerable homeowners, to ensure that people like Karen could never again use their small power to destroy lives. Emma would grow up in a safe neighborhood, surrounded by people who looked out for each other. She would never remember the day she was placed on burning concrete. But I would remember. And I would make sure that memory drove me to protect others, to fight corruption, to stand up to bullies no matter how powerful they seemed. Because that's what we do. We protect the vulnerable. We fight for justice. We refuse to let evil triumph. Karen Whitmore thought she was untouchable. She thought her title and her connections made her invincible. She was wrong. And 40 years in prison would give her plenty of time to think about that mistake.